The OTF rapper was observed being informed by the judge about his future in this case, which made today's Durk court session quite emotional. According to reports, Durk has been moved from Broward County to California today, where he will be charged with federal crimes on October 25th. U.S. Marshals were ordered to transfer him from Broward Jail in Florida to federal custody, and as a result, Durk is no longer visible in the jail's arrest portal. This move eliminates any chance that he will be released on bond, and Charleston White is pleased about it, calling it a victory for the community.
I don't think drill rappers would ever be celebrated ever again. Down goes the drill. 12th round knockout, because it looked like they had got away and they get to ride off into the sunset. So this is a victory for law-abiding Americans who like hip-hop music but don't like the killing part of it. This is a real victory.
Charleston White, a controversial figure known for his outspoken and often provocative statements, recently weighed in on the drama surrounding OTF Jam and his involvement in the unfolding saga involving Lil Durk and his OTF Only the Family crew. White's opinion on the matter was clear: OTF Jam did the right thing, but unfortunately the situation took a turn for the worse for him. The tension within the OTF camp reached a boiling point, and Jam's alleged betrayal would soon be revealed in a shocking series of events. It all started when Lil Durk, the leader of OTF and a prominent figure in the rap world, spoke for the first time since his arrest in connection with a high-profile case. His message came through in a song by Hypno Corrido titled Free Smirk. This track, which dropped shortly after Durk's publicized arrest, served as a powerful statement, signaling to his fans and critics alike that he was still fighting for his freedom and resilience despite the legal battles mounting against him. Not long after the song's release, a stunning development hit the headlines. OTF Jam, who had once been one of Durk's most loyal and trusted members, was reportedly found by other OTF members hiding out in a house on the outskirts of Atlanta. Sources began to suggest that Jam had been dealt with in a severe manner, receiving punishment for allegedly snitching on Lil Durk and his associates. A picture of the house where Jam had been hiding was leaked, igniting further speculation about the true nature of his relationship with Durk and his crew. The allegations against Jam intensified after the discovery of an old Instagram live video from a few years back where Jam appeared to be seen in the company of Lil Durk. In the video, Jam could be seen fiddling with what appeared to be a wire hidden inside his jacket. He was seen whispering into the device, ensuring that it was recording. This footage, which many took as evidence of Jam being involved in some form of covert surveillance or cooperation with law enforcement, added a significant layer of drama to an already complicated situation. What made Jam's supposed betrayal particularly shocking was the fact that he had once been considered one of the most loyal members of OTF. He had just served a 12-year prison sentence, and Durk had reportedly done everything in his power to support Jam during his time behind bars. Durk had sent Jam a significant sum of money, $50,000, upon his release, and even provided him with a car and a house to ensure his comfort as he reintegrated into the outside world. These acts of loyalty on Durk's part made it all the more baffling when Jam was implicated in the alleged snitching, especially given how well Durk had taken care of him. The relationship between Durk and Jam was not just about financial transactions. It was built on a deep and enduring bond that transcended simple business dealings. Their connection, as Jam himself later explained, spanned several years, going back to a time even before Jam's incarceration. Jam recalled a pivotal moment in their relationship when Durk, recognizing the potential in him, stepped up in a way that would forever change the course of his life. Durk offered him a substantial $50,000, an amount that symbolized more than just financial help. It represented Durk's belief in Jam and a promise that he would never have to ask for assistance again. This gesture was not simply an act of charity, it was a demonstration of loyalty and trust, a bond that appeared unbreakable to those who observed it. For Jam, this moment was more than just a financial transaction, it was a life-altering act of support. Durk had shown him that he was willing to invest in his future, believing in his ability to rise above the hardships that life had thrown his way. Their relationship, built on trust, seemed to be a model of loyalty and brotherhood, a rare connection in the often treacherous world they both inhabited. This foundation of trust was what made the accusations of betrayal so jarring for those who had watched the two men grow together. After everything, Jam's betrayal of Durk seemed unthinkable to many. The story revealed that things were not as they seemed. Jam's perspective on their bond shifted dramatically in the wake of the betrayal rumors. In an interview, he expressed his disbelief and frustration over how their once solid relationship had deteriorated so quickly. Jam opened up about his own struggles, revealing the personal battles he had fought both before and after his time in prison. He spoke candidly about the challenges he faced while incarcerated, specifically his unwavering commitment to keeping his name out of any legal entanglements. Jam had served his time without ever cooperating with authorities, keeping his word to those who had shown him loyalty, including Durk. He was determined to rebuild his life on his own terms without ever compromising his integrity. It was in this fragile state, caught between the desire to maintain his freedom and the overwhelming fear of returning to prison, that Jam's choices became clouded. The emotional and psychological toll of being in this situation was clear in his interview, where he detailed the torment of having to make decisions in such an unforgiving environment. Jam was at a crossroads: one wrong move, one misstep, and his future could be forever altered. He admitted that his desperation to avoid another lengthy prison sentence made him susceptible to influences he might have otherwise resisted. In his mind, the fear of returning to a place that had already stolen so much from him drove him to make decisions he would later regret. What had once been a bond founded on mutual respect and loyalty now seemed to be unraveling in front of the public eye. Jam's emotional turmoil and the weight of his circumstances led him to act in ways that ultimately betrayed the very trust Durk had placed in him. The complexity of their relationship became even more apparent as the truth about Jam's struggles began to surface. For those who had followed their careers, it was challenging to reconcile the man Jam had been with the man he had become. Jam's story was not just one of betrayal, it was a tale of survival in a world where choices were often limited and consequences unforgiving. His confession shed light on the internal battles he faced, and though it didn't excuse his actions, it provided context for the decisions that had led to the rupture in his relationship with Durk. The true cost of loyalty, trust, and survival in a harsh, unpredictable world was laid bare in Jam's revelations, leaving both men and their followers grappling with the fallout. At this point, the federal government allegedly intervened. Federal investigators reportedly offered Jam a deal: they would spare him from a lengthy prison sentence if he cooperated with them and provided information about Lil Durk and his associates. This was the crucial moment that would set the stage for the unraveling of Jam's fate. The deal would see him potentially turn informant in exchange for his freedom. While Jam's decision to cooperate with the feds might have been born out of desperation, it did not sit well with the OTF crew, especially Lil Durk. The loyalty between the two men, which had seemed unbreakable, was shattered, and Durk's response was swift and unforgiving. Despite his past support of Jam, Durk made it clear that his inner circle must not betray him. Many of Durk's supporters were also quick to condemn Jam for his actions. One such critic was L Baby, who publicly expressed his disappointment in Jam for turning his back on Durk. L Baby's response resonated with many, as he argued that Jam's actions were a clear example of the streets being cruel and how even the closest of friends could be turned against you when loyalty was tested. L Baby's message was clear: free the boy Durk, but this can't be true. Why all's own brother will turn his back on you? The federal investigation into Durk and OTF Jam grew more complex as time passed. According to leaked evidence, the feds had obtained Jam's wiretaps, which allegedly contained damning information about Durk's involvement in criminal activity. One piece of evidence that emerged was an iCloud record showing Durk advising one of his associates involved in the alleged hit plot to avoid booking flights under names associated with him. This piece of circumstantial evidence was enough to raise eyebrows, but it was far from a solid case. The feds still needed more to make a concrete link between Durk and the crimes. Adding another layer to the case, a chilling video surfaced showing King Von, Durk's late friend and fellow OTF member, shopping for jewelry with 3 individuals who were later connected to the crime in question. This video seemed to implicate Durk in a larger conspiracy, as it was suggested that these men who were connected to King Von's death may have worked with Durk to carry out the retaliation. Despite the mounting pressure and the growing complexity of the situation, Durk remained unfazed, demonstrating a level of awareness that seemed almost instinctual. He had always been attuned to the dynamics around him, and in a 2022 interview, Durk made it clear that he was well-versed in recognizing when someone was trying to betray him. In his typically blunt manner, Durk shared, "I see HAT from a mile away. I can have a conversation with you for 5 seconds and know you're going to cooperate." His words carried a deeper weight, revealing a man who had cultivated a sharp sense of perception and intuition. Born not only from his success but also from the harsh lessons of loyalty and deception that the streets had taught him, Durk's ability to read people and situations in such a precise manner was a skill honed over time, shaped by both his experiences in the music industry and his tumultuous past in the streets. This heightened sense of paranoia and self-preservation was something that became a recurring theme as the investigation into the alleged betrayal by Jam unfolded. As Durk navigated the murky waters of suspicion, his instincts appeared to drive every move he made. He knew the stakes were high, and the very people he considered allies could easily turn on him if the situation called for it. His response to the brewing storm was a reflection of his acute awareness of the dangers around him, especially when trust had become a fragile commodity. When Durk learned of Jam's alleged betrayal, his reaction was swift and calculated. The notion of loyalty in his world was sacred, and once it was compromised, there was little room for second chances. Durk's reaction was not just an emotional outburst, it was a calculated and deliberate withdrawal from anyone he suspected of disloyalty. He went to extreme lengths to isolate himself from those he no longer trusted, taking actions that spoke volumes about his need to protect both his physical and emotional well-being. Durk's choice to change his living arrangements was one of the first signs of how deeply the sense of betrayal had affected him. He refused to disclose his whereabouts to anyone, ensuring that his new location remained a mystery even to his closest friends. This isolation was not just about physical space, it was about mental and emotional distance as well. Durk became extremely selective about who he allowed into his inner circle. Even those who had been by his side for years were kept at arm's length. His home, once a place where close friends could find refuge, became a fortress with no entry. The sense of trust that had once bound him to these individuals was now shattered, replaced by a pervasive fear that no one, no matter how close they seemed, could truly be trusted. Durk's extreme measures were also a direct response to the ever-present threat that hung over him. He viewed the streets as constant adversaries, always lurking and waiting for an opportunity to strike. He wasn't just concerned about random enemies, he feared that the very people he had once counted on could turn against him. In a world where loyalty was constantly tested and where betrayal could come from even the most unexpected sources, Durk found it necessary to protect himself by severing ties with anyone who might pose a threat. This deep sense of mistrust didn't stop with the betrayal of Jam. It was a mindset that had been nurtured over time, and it permeated every aspect of Durk's life. It was as though he had been forced to live in a state of constant vigilance, unable to let his guard down for even a moment. His decision to cut ties with those he no longer trusted spoke volumes about his understanding of the harsh realities of his world. Durk was not just protecting his empire or his career, he was safeguarding his very survival, ensuring that the people around him were either fully loyal or completely dispensable. As the investigation unfolded, Durk's actions reflected a man who had learned the hard way that in his world, the stakes were never low, trust was a rare commodity, and betrayal was always just around the corner. His ability to navigate this treacherous terrain while maintaining a sharp focus on his own self-preservation showed just how far Durk had come. What might have been seen by others as mere paranoia was, to Durk, a necessary defense mechanism, one that kept him ahead of the game in a world where even your closest allies could become your worst enemies. Despite all the evidence being gathered by the feds, some believed that Durk could still escape conviction. Bradford Cohen, a well-known rap lawyer who represented other artists, weighed in on the situation, suggesting that the feds might not have a strong enough case to convict Durk. He pointed out that while the text messages and circumstantial evidence were concerning, they were far from definitive. Cohen believed that much more was needed to establish a solid case against Durk, and that the feds would have to present more concrete evidence, such as wiretaps or videos, to make a successful prosecution. The fate of Lil Durk was hanging in the balance as the federal authorities closed in on him, with the outcome depending largely on what evidence the feds had gathered and whether anyone else in his inner circle would turn on him. The pressure was mounting not only from the legal system but also from the intricate web of loyalty and betrayal within Durk's own team. The investigation was progressing quickly, and the possibility of further individuals flipping and agreeing to cooperate with the government loomed large. Legal experts like Cohen pointed out that the government's strategy would likely target the lowest-hanging fruit, individuals with the least involvement in the criminal activities being investigated but who were still willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence or other forms of leniency. These individuals, often seen as expendable in the larger scheme of things, could provide crucial information about higher-ranking members of OTF, only the family, including Durk himself. The feds would likely pressure these lower-level associates to testify in exchange for a lighter sentence, knowing that their testimonies could help build a case against Durk and potentially bring down the entire operation. As the investigation continued, it became clear that the authorities were prepared to do whatever it took to break the case wide open. Over the course of several weeks, the pressure on Durk intensified. The feds were not only gathering physical evidence but also utilizing wiretaps to listen in on conversations, something that would later prove to be a pivotal tool in the case against him. These wiretaps, along with other forms of surveillance, would provide damning evidence, leading to incriminating conversations and activities that directly linked Durk and his associates to the crimes they were being investigated for. Then, the situation took a dramatic turn. In a move that shocked the hip-hop world, the feds executed their plan. Within a 24-hour span, they arrested Durk along with 5 of his closest associates. The timing of the arrest sent waves of disbelief throughout the rap community. Fans, fellow artists, and industry insiders alike were left scrambling to understand what had led to such a rapid and coordinated takedown. Speculation ran wild about what evidence the authorities had on Durk and what had tipped the scale to prompt the arrests. For many, the question on everyone's mind was whether Durk was truly guilty or whether he had simply been a casualty of a system that often targeted high-profile individuals to make an example out of them. Given Durk's influence in the rap game and his involvement with OTF, a label that had built a reputation for being tied to street culture, the feds had ample reason to focus on him. His connection to other known figures in the criminal world, combined with his public persona and controversial lyrics, made him an obvious target for investigation. In the days following the arrest, the narrative continued to unfold. the case against Durk was being pieced together with several key elements coming into play. One of the most significant pieces of evidence came from the betrayal of Jam, a close associate of Durk's whose actions had played a central role in the investigation. Jam's alleged betrayal seemed to be the catalyst that had sparked the interest of law enforcement in the first place, and it was rumored that he had been cooperating with the feds. His involvement, whether voluntary or coerced, was a critical turning point in the case. The wiretaps, too, were proving to be invaluable in building the case. They not only provided direct evidence of criminal activity, but also offered insight into the inner workings of OTF, exposing the level of coordination and the roles played by various individuals within the organization. As more details emerged, it became clear that the feds had built a comprehensive case against Durk and his associates, and the charges against him were becoming increasingly serious. For Durk, the situation was growing increasingly dire. As the investigation continued to develop, the possibility of more individuals flipping and providing testimony against him became a looming threat. Each new arrest and every new piece of evidence seemed to tighten the knot around his neck. The rap community, once his biggest supporters, was now divided. Fans were left to question whether Durk's success and image of loyalty had been shattered by the realities of the criminal justice system, or whether the truth of his involvement would remain unclear as the case dragged on. In the end, it was not just about whether he would face legal consequences, but also about how this saga would reshape his legacy in the eyes of the public. Amidst